Welcome everyone to Musician Mastery Summit. I'm your host, Aaron Wolf. This is the #1 online summit to help you thrive as an independent artist. And today we have someone joining us who is a very special guest. He's doing just that, helping artists thrive through his YouTube channel. He's also the founder of an indoor arts and music festival, Adventure ATL Fest. And through his Brandman Sean YouTube channel, he's building a music and entrepreneurship education platform to empower and connect artists. So we have Brandman Sean. Thank you so much for joining us. Appreciate you, man.
No problem, man. Glad to be here.
Good deal. So I've done a fair amount of homework and research on you. For anyone who hasn't already seen your YouTube channel and gotten value out of that, can you kind of tell us a little bit about your background and how you got started in the music industry and what your career looks like today?
Yeah. So I've been in marketing, branding for a long time now. Kind of just had haphazardly ended up in the music industry, I guess you could say in some ways, just because being in Atlanta, I went to Georgia State University for college, had roommates that were all musically inclined. They wanted to start like a little production company. It was 4 of us in all. So I kind of joined into that. And I was actually rapping at the time, not really trying to be a rapper, but they wanted me to be, wanted me to rap. So I did. I was pretty decent at it, but that didn't really go anywhere. That was my first foray of just being in the industry. And I knew something just because my brother, he's 7 years older than me, and he would be, I would see some things that he'd be doing here and there. And then next thing you know, as a lot of people who are on the marketing side of things, parties and events, I'm making that happen, promotions, and then that kind of just spitball into, of course, your promotion. Now you're meeting artists, and those relationships grow. Artists want you to market for them. That was my primary entry. I have, a lot of random little experiences like a lot of people in the industry do, but that's probably the most direct line of painting how I got into it in the first place.
Got you. So to better understand, you said that you'd actually help artists market, that you'd build relationships with through your various kind of things you were doing. What are some specific ways that you've been able to help artists with their career? There's obviously so many different aspects, but what is kind of your bread and butter?
Right. My bread and butter is content, just brand identity, and overall marketing for specific events or projects, or promoting for specific events for projects, what that marketing strategy looks like.
Okay.
I've also done quite a bit of just fan conversion rate strategies, or how do we get the most out of our fan base. Mm-hmm. So whether that might be traditionally in some ways through direct mail or building email lists, that might be also getting phone numbers, and how do we create that direct contact through I implemented Superphone with an artist, right? It's various ways, but really I always try to figure out how do we get the most for the least amount of effort. So what that might look like from a content standpoint, I always talk about the difference between being cool and actually being remarkable, right? Remarkable is a big term that got coined from, and Seth Godin's Purple Cow, but it's really just that difference of there's a lot of high quality content out there, especially these days. Fans almost expect, good quality camera work and things like that. But if your concept isn't something that's going to get people talking, right, then you're doing a video, but you're not getting the most out of that video. And now you have to work even harder to market it versus something you get awareness from, but it starts to create this funnel of its own because it's something that's worth talking about.
Gotcha. Yeah, I noticed watching some of your videos, you talked about I'm probably the 100th person to bring this up in an interview. I don't know, but the dude rapping in Compton, the nerd rapping in Compton.
Oh yeah.
I think so many times as an artist, especially nowadays, it's the comparison trap. We start comparing our quality of video content to everyone else, and I think a lot of people, including myself, I've been guilty of getting caught up on that. And when I heard your take on that and why you thought that it was working and stuff, it really kind of opened my eyes. And I think that kind of information that you're putting out there, to the extent of, it doesn't have to be on a red cam or anything like that. If the concept is dope, people are going to want to share it. And so I thought that was pretty cool that you're, with your huge following, you're able to put that out there and kind of let people know, like, it's more about what the concept is versus the quality.
Yeah,
so
definitely. I mean, how many videos have you shared that might be comedic? It might be something like a short 15-second clip, and it might have been shot on a camera phone, and it might be horrible quality, but you're sharing it on Instagram because it's creating some kind of emotion in you. You think it's funny, sad, stupid, whatever, and then that goes viral in itself. It's all that same concept, but people tend to lose that when they're making their own content. Yeah. And how people receive it. They get into this hyper competitive, artistic way things are supposed to be world, which is usually counterproductive.
Yes. Yeah, I was talking to one of the other speakers, Tubby Love, and he had said that he'd gotten advice to where if you have something for more than a year, it's like it's too old. You create a project, it's like you got to get it out. So I think in a lot of instances, it's like imperfect action can trump the perfect quality or anything like that. So I love that. Love that point. What are some of the more common mistakes that you're noticing from artists now? Like, what are the things you're seeing people struggle with, and how do you kind of help them overcome that when they're working with you?
Especially dealing with like a lot of artists who are pretty new in their own development and pretty much working for themselves, don't have a big team or anything like that. One of the biggest things is what you just said, as far as not putting stuff out and getting overly analyzing whether this is good or whether I want to be, whether I'm at a certain point. It's one thing if you're like, I'm developing my sound and trying to figure out what my sound is. So you kind of experiment and get to that point. But once you get to a standpoint of, I think this is really dope, and saying I have all this really dope music, but you don't want to put it out because you don't know if it's ready, if your marketing plan is perfect. If you don't have that much money, your marketing plan is, I'm not going to say irrelevant, but it has nowhere near as much weight as you think it does. Right? Like, you have to get it out and create exposure. And once you have it out there, there's different ways you can create exposure, but a lot of people are trying to strategize as if they're already Beyonce or something like that, and they can get it placed and create this immediate exposure off of $800. You know what I'm saying?
Gotcha.
Like, you have to realize the amount of money you have. You need to use more creative outlets as far as how do we get this placed. Maybe you build a relationship with somebody, or the futuristic video is the one you were referring to. That guy did a collaboration. I'm the nerd rapper, but I'm doing it in a collaboration with an already big YouTuber, and his page is comedic, has nothing to do with music. So that, once again, it's not putting out music fast enough or getting your product so you can get some feedback, because it could be trash. We need honest feedback. For one, like you saying your music is good, or sending to someone like me and say, is it good or not? That's irrelevant. Can it create its own fan base outside of looking for some kind of influencer or A&R to save your life? And then on top of that, actually moving into creative ways to get your music placed, and what that distribution looks like, versus I'm just going to drop it on YouTube and I'm going to pay for YouTube ads, or I'm going to pay for Facebook ads. But I think the biggest issue that comes from that is a lot of people expect, especially who don't have like sales experience, if they never worked some kind of traditional job, they expect this like immediate turnaround. So they don't understand like follow up over a long period of time, where I'm reaching out to this YouTuber and this YouTuber didn't respond immediately. And now I'm like, oh, well, they just don't like me, or I don't know. Yeah. Like, you have to be creative in how you get people's attention. It's up to you. It's not up to them. They're already busy, and they already have a lot of people coming at you. It's not anything personal, 9 times out of 10. So that's another side thing that I really see, especially for younger artists, because especially when your art is so emotional to you and people feel like they've been rejected, a lot of times the rejection isn't a rejection. It's you have to get somebody's full attention before they appreciate it.
Love that, man. Yeah, I think that everyone's so short. Our attention span is so short nowadays, and it takes, I think, like 7 touch points on a digital marketing side for people to actually ever convert on something. So I would assume
Explain what that means, because people need to understand what you mean by touch points.
Yeah, so the different ways that you can come across them on their digital platform. So like, I don't know if any of you in the audience have ever been. I'm sure you have. You've been searching on someone's Instagram, then you go to their website, and then all of a sudden you go over to YouTube, and their ad pops up on YouTube, and then from there you end up seeing them collaborating with another person, and then you get retargeted when you're searching on Google. And so the psychology of selling is it kind of translates over to the sales background, where it takes a lot of no's to get a yes with people. And most salespeople fail because they're not following up enough. Add to that the fact that everyone is so hyper focused on them and what they're doing right now. The biggest advice I would give, and especially reaching out to people like you, Jay Hatch, Wendy Day, that have, you guys are busy, you have probably more opportunities coming to you than you can handle. It's, what can I do to help you first, and then continuously following up. And I know that like with Facebook ads and Instagram and all the different digital marketing, I mean, you can literally hyper target and literally be popping up to people, and you can retarget them if they've come to your website. And I noticed that you had mentioned there was $1 billion opportunity that a lot of people could capitalize on, but they a lot of entertainers don't really know what that is. Can you explain to the audience what that might be, and kind of what that means in this day and age to have?
Which one are you referring to? I know I've said that. I feel like you have one specifically in mind, and I've said that a couple of times to people.
Have you? Okay, so I was talking about the data.
Oh man. Okay, that.
Like what kind of data is actually at our fingertips?
What people have to really understand is all of this stuff that you're doing online, this presence that you're creating, has a footprint. And the $1 billion opportunity, the way I describe what Aaron is talking about, the way I talk about it that way, is because all of these companies that you see getting these $1 billion evaluations, many $1 billion evaluations, you're talking about Facebook, Amazon, just you name it. Yeah, they might have a core business that's making money, like if Amazon is talking about transactions, they send you stuff, you buy stuff. But the biggest level of the most of their evaluation is coming from the data that they have access to and what they can do because they have access to that data. So what that looks like is, if I'm an artist and I have all of this, or let's say I'm Jay-Z, right? And I released this project all digital, like he did with Samsung, and everybody downloads this app so they can hear it. Then now I have all these people's data that logged into the app. They might have provided their email address, their phone number, all these things. And now that I have this access to them, I can directly sell them again because of that access to them, right? And whatever else I want to put in front of them. So because of data, one of the biggest uses of data these days is really goes back to marketing. It just helps you get in front of the right people, right? Because now that I have the data, I know if I have something that will be great for the target market of women that are between this age and like this type of music, then I have the data to put it in front of those type of people, right? It's not just having like it for research. People don't realize that data is not just like a research academic thing. It's something that you can actually take action on, yes. Right? It's like if you say LeBron James at the end of games likes to typically drive to his left to take a shot. You can use that data to know I need to either try to make him drive right or prepare to guard him going left. But it helps you make better decisions in the moment, whatever you're doing as an artist. So as an artist, think about the fact that when you're on Instagram, if you have Facebook insights on it, you'll be able to see like all of that as far as the age, the best posting times for the week and all that stuff. I wouldn't get too deep into whatever the best posting times and things like that is, but understanding if most of your audience is female or male, some of the age ranges and all those things that it provides that a lot of artists don't do because it doesn't look as cool to have your contact information or anything like stuff like that there. It's something that's there. and it's something that you can use if you really want to build an effective marketing strategy, as opposed to saying, I'm looking at this artist and he did this, so I'm going to do something like it. I have all these genius ideas, but it doesn't matter if that genius idea isn't genius for your particular audience.
Yeah.
So the $1 billion opportunity is obviously not only because these companies are literally getting billions of dollars because of their data, but you have that opportunity to make plenty of money and capitalize on building your brand if you use the data that you have at hand as well.
Totally, yeah, and I think one of the coolest parts that took me a long time to really grasp is that you can, let's say that 80% of the people who are engaging with one of your products or your project or a video you put up there are women. In the back end of Facebook, Facebook is, you can actually do ads through the ads manager in Facebook, where you can even get more hyper targeted than just boosting a post, which I think is what a lot of musicians do. But you can then go in and say, well, if it's costing me X amount, $10 to get in front of, these people of this demographic, but it's only $5 to get in front of these people, then, you can double down on the areas that you're getting the most traction. And it's really crazy that you're only paying for the people that you choose to show it to. So I think that's been a huge breakthrough, and I've been following digital marketing for a while. My partner, as I said, she's crazy at it. She's one of the kind of more known people in that space, and it's surprising to me how few artists and musicians are willing to tell other people that that's what's working for them. Where you see a lot of these people, if you notice, like one of the groups that did it really well, I noticed I kept getting retargeted for all of Love Renaissance's ads, and even on a different genre, Trevor Hall is an artist that plays a totally different type of music. He's also independent, and he's now leveraging these tools that the major labels were the only ones that were using prior to that. So on that note, where would you recommend people? I mean, what are some resources for artists that can go and learn a little bit more about that stuff if they wanted to? Like, where did you learn about it, I guess?
Oh, man. Well, I'll start with online. I would just say you can start with YouTube, right? Just
Exactly.
Google, understand the concepts, right? If you know the terms, you can do the research to find the how to do it, right? So, say targeted Facebook ads. What's another term? Research marketing funnels. Once you understand these basic concepts and things like that, you'll be able to figure out what program, because each platform has its own way of actually implementing these things, but everybody's it's all the same thing conceptually. So research retargeting marketing, or I don't know however you would say it. What's another term that, let me see. I think those three are marketing funnels, retargeting, just target marketing in general, so you understand what that is.
Yep.
And even when it gets specific to things like Facebook, which is still building off that concept, you look at audiences. Those are so just start with those terms. That'll lead you down the rabbit hole of figuring out a lot of the other stuff. I don't know a lot of great necessarily pages. There's people who sell programs on those things. Yep. I've thought about creating a program of that myself. If I do it, somebody will hear about it, but I don't have it on my roadmap yet. The way I specifically really got a lot of knowledge on those things was I actually went to college for computer information systems. So I was doing a lot of things in tech, and just tech is just ahead of things in a lot of ways. So I was working at a startup, a sales development software startup. So everything was sales, marketing heavy. It's like a hyperbolic chamber for sales and marketing education. I attribute a lot of it from that. Other than that, it's a hell of a lot of self-education, but that was definitely one of the most influential eras in terms of just the paradigm shift of understanding how this online marketing and stuff like that works. And then people like Gary Vee and Grant Cardone. They're just people who affirm and reaffirm that the direction and not only the tactics of doing it, but the context of how you do it effectively and build real trust with the audience, as opposed to, because you can just like pound, and make these things work just off of sheer numbers. But if you ever want to for real build a true business and brand, it really takes gaining trust with the audience and having a certain level of ethics and quality of product that you stand by.
Yeah, that kind of reminds me of, so in my sales career, I was always going out and you're basically like looking for and being the person going out to find customers. The way that I did it, it was direct sales, so literally like knocking doors for 10 years. And when I realized the flip side of this stuff, with the digital marketing, it's more about offering value, so that they consume it and they're like, man, this guy just got me this much further ahead. I wonder what else I can get from them. And so I think in relation to music and the music industry, anyone who loves music, it's like if you just hit them with some of your great content without asking, hey, download my single right away, it's a balance between giving value and then asking, because they need to know, like, and trust you before anything. So I love that we got to talk about that, man. You definitely know a lot about the marketing side. I want to switch gears a little bit and talk to you about something I'm pretty interested in after doing this, pulling everything together for this. What was it that inspired you to create? Is it ATL Fest? Is that how you say it, or are you saying Atlanta Fest?
Oh, Adventure ATL Fest?
Adventure ATL, yes. What was, like, how did that come about, and what inspired you to do that? And for anyone who doesn't know what it is, can you explain kind of the concept of it? Because I really thought that was dope.
Okay. Well, we can start by the concept. Yeah, so Adventure ATL Fest is an indoor music festival. We actually just take an entire building and repurpose every single room to feel like its own world, energy, and vibe. And as you go throughout the night, it's not only a collection of artists that are performing throughout the event, but there's artists in terms of visual artists, right? That we have a gallery in one room. This is just 1 year as an example. There was an art gallery in one room. In the basement, there was like this rave energy and, smoke everywhere, all that stuff. There was a glow party upstairs. There's just a relaxed, chill room. Of course, we have food vendors. But so it's a really eclectic world, and you have different types of genres. And it doesn't have to be a span of, like, we have heavy metal with R&B. It's not necessarily about being like super eclectic or diverse for the sake of diversity. I'm completely against diversity for the sake of diversity, because that's a novel, cool thing that'll die soon because it's anti-value most times. But the whole concept was actually born for my dislike for events that I was going to. It's pretty weird because I would go to clubs a lot at one time when I was in college, and after a while, you kind of get tired of it. It's like stand around, do nothing. Everybody's there to be seen, but not actually have fun.
Yeah.
You get tired of that environment. It's close. Everybody, you can barely move.
Yeah.
But then getting outside that, I discovered this other world, which was like creatives, and they throw these artsy events and they're anti-club. However, when you go, it was basically the same shit.
Yeah.
Like the only difference was there was art on the wall, right? And the reason that happened, in my observation, was, well, when you have these artists throwing events, or a lot of these people in general throwing events, they were trying to get people there for them and their own, like, to be seen. Yeah. So that was their focus. And the event wasn't about the people itself. Me not being an artist, I think it made it a lot easier for me, especially not even trying to be even a promoter and build a business in that way and make that my, like, line of business, event promotions. Mm-hmm. It made it a lot easier for me to say, hey, let me provide something that's just Disney World for this age range, right? This group, they enjoy the hell out of it. It's all focused on that. They get stimulated in this room. You get tired of it for a second. You go to another room. You might come back, but it's just this adventure throughout the whole process, and that's where the name Adventure ATL Fest came from. As a matter of fact, the original name was Adventure Time ATL, but it was a little too close to the relation of the cartoon, so we rebranded that recently. But and rebranding is a whole another type of a beast in itself, but we did it successfully, which is cool. But yeah, that's where the event was born out of, that kind of energy, almost a disdain for events that I was going to myself.
Very cool, man. One thing that I want to stress to everyone, and it's something that, you know, it takes a while to really grasp. But it's a shift from like the scarcity of, hey, I need to promote myself and what am I getting out of it, to literally like, what solution can I put out in the world? And people are they're so sick of being sold to and being coerced and forced and manipulated in things. So like when you come on your YouTube channel or when you create an event and you're like, hey, I'm literally just trying to solve a problem to help people, I think that there's a natural attraction to that versus being so forced. Do you know what I mean? So I love that, man. I think that is like the future of really business, and it's awesome to see people kind of pioneering that in the music industry, like you and the other people we've had on here, because it's just, you know, people, they want to know who they can trust and who they can go to. And even just watching a few of your YouTube videos, I was like, okay, this guy's on the same wavelength of service. And so I think that that's interesting that you saw a problem and you're like, how can I fix this problem? And it wasn't necessarily for your gain, but now, you know, you're getting opportunities where people are asking you about it. And so I think that that's tremendously valuable for people to realize. And I've tried to shift my way of thinking to like, okay, where are the things that I feel are having issues or lacking, and try to kind of create a solution, which is really why this came to be.
Yeah, man, it's all the same, or at least similar. Like the best term to just describe it all for me is user experience, right? If you come from the tech world, especially computer science and all that stuff, right? When we go on these websites, they talk about user experience. What's the best place to place this button so they do the least amount of work to get them to the result that you want, right? What feels better? You know, you translate, that's digital talking about websites, but you translate that to how Apple boxes its products, right? It feels better to open their products. You know, the packaging feels a little bit more premium and expensive, and a lot of other hardware companies have adopted that as well. You go to a restaurant, you have great service, and they have peppermints, and they gave me free bread, and they gave me free liquor or something, when I was at the bar. But like all those extra little things that just make the experience better. We did it everywhere in life, but for some reason, once again, when people try to sell and convince other people of things, they tend to forget the things that make them like shit too.
Yeah.
Right? So it's something that you really just have to constantly keep in mind. And I even think about that when I talk about my event, the Adventure ATL Fest. I've consulted, and it'll be easier for me to say this because I don't want to do this in any personal capacity anymore, like from a consultation standpoint. But like as an artist, all of your events should be kind of like Adventure ATL Fest. It's from a paradigm perspective, it's not about you. It should be about creating the best experience for the audience. And the reason that will help you greatly is because people are going to associate you with the amazing feeling that they feel when they came to your show, right? There's a lot of people who don't necessarily like or listen to Kanye West heavily, or don't really go heavily to shows, but they'll hear about this amazing experience at the Kanye West show when he had the elevated stage or something like that. So they're like, I want to go see it. Man, more people talk about it, right? Travis Scott, his music, whatever your opinion is about it, is definitely more of a atmospheric thing, but it merges with the experience of his show. And you always hear about the experience of his shows. People love his shows because he's creating all this extra other than just being on stage performing. You have to have something extra. And I think where that got lost with a lot of artists is now we hear people talk more and more about artists these days and use that terminology as opposed to entertainers. Like, you don't hear as many artists that want to be entertainers anymore. And entertainment by nature is customer focused.
Yes.
Because if you're not entertaining, you failed. But artists, that thought process is, well, they either appreciate it or not. Like, I make good music. It's so focused. But entertainment, like just like a comedian, the joke wasn't funny if nobody laughed. I don't care if I thought my joke was funny. Yeah. Like, that's why comedians, like, that's the logic and that's how they build. That's why Michael Jackson was so larger than life. And they call him one of the GOAT entertainers because everything he did, all that extra world that nobody else did, from his outfits to the videos to the movies and these huge productions, it was based on entertaining and creating. And which is it's no surprise that one of his biggest inspirations was Disney World. Yeah. Right? He was once again creating like a Disney World for his audience. So think about entertainment. How do I entertain my audience? Because that's what gets your attention. Whether you're being entertained on Netflix, entertained at a basketball game, entertained musically, it's the entertainment industry. So to be an artist in the entertainment industry and forget to actually entertain, you're setting yourself up to fail.
Man, that is huge. I didn't even realize that about Michael Jackson with Disney being his inspiration, but it totally makes sense now that you said that.
Yep.
What are some ways that you've seen artists kind of get creative on creating an experience for their audience? Like, are there any good examples that you can think of? I think Rory did like a game one time. He did that was like the one thing that came to top of mind. Like, you have to beat a video game to unlock something. Do you have any examples that people could kind of reference just to kind of get a better idea?
Yeah, man, you stay up on Love Renaissance stuff, don't you?
Well, yeah, I know a lot of them. Yeah, well, I don't know them as much, but one of their associates, you know. But I just really felt how they were marketing. Do you know what I mean? And that was one thing that stood out to me. And even this far down the road, I still remembered it. You know what I mean? So
yeah. There's been I think one thing is the fact that how Tyler Creator and Future, they did their festival. I forgot the name of their festival. It was like Camp Flognog or something.
Yep.
I think that was right. I'm actually surprised that I said it even close. But even if that's not specific, it's closer than I thought it would be. But they created a festival, and The Roots, the band that's not, maybe as popular, they have The Roots Picnic.
Okay.
And that's in Philadelphia, and that's grown to this huge event. And over maybe like 10, 20 years, I don't know how long it's been, but it's been at least a decade. But how these experiences, so they were ahead of the game, how they've grown, and that's just something that's based on the audience, and it's an additional attachment to the brand that's not necessarily, this is me directly. I'm curating this experience in a whole different way of other things. So festivals and events, that's something kind of obvious that a lot of people do. Let me see another experience. What's something else that I saw that was very cool? Man, I know there's some things.
How about for like listening parties? Have you seen any?
Oh, okay. There was actually. I'll try to do multiple. There's one guy. I did a video on him early on. He's not like a big artist or anything, but his name was is Tougaloo Blue, and he was like a college student at the time. And for one, he had this whole theme of doing his entire project in his college dorm, and had like saxophonists come, other rappers and all that stuff, just other people come in to collaborate on his project. He did the whole thing in his dorm. Then he did the first like event in his actual college dorm, like the actual like college performance. Uh-huh. And a lot of people started coming just because they heard the ruckus. But then the coolest thing was he went to a drive-through theater, and in between movies, he had his album, his project premiered. Some people knew, some people were just there to see the movie. But that was a really cool thing that he got just for one, going into the white space where a lot of competition and people aren't even thinking to be, and getting something that you would think I would have to pay, I don't know how many $1,000s to make happen. But he just went and happened to see somebody sitting on one of the workers, like sitting on a curb doing their break, asked them about the idea, and they were like, hey, that's kind of cool. Let's see if we can make that happen. And it happened like within a week later. Man. And so that was something that was really cool and interesting. Another thing, let me see, listening party. I know there's one listening party that I'm not thinking about that I want to say. I'm going to hate when I think about it later. But I know a lot of people are doing silent parties a lot lately. I'm not a big fan of that.
Really?
For me, it's anti-interaction in a lot of times. Or I think it's too novel. People don't think past it.
Gotcha.
Right?
Gotcha.
So once you do it, like the novelty is over. Yeah. And now so many people are doing it. You just have to think past whatever that is.
Seems like something that everyone's kind of jumping on. Well, you gave a really good example with that one. I wanted to talk a little bit actually about you wrote a book. You have a book out.
Which one? You're talking about Master Music Marketing?
Mm-hmm. Or I think it was networking. Did you have
Master Music Networking? That's what I meant.
Yeah. I was like, man, did I get the wrong book? What was it that inspired that? Can you kind of talk on that a little bit?
Yeah, that was inspired by really just one thing that you can get from data, right? So when we talked about data earlier, I'm having a lot of conversations and keeping a pulse on the fan base that I was building through YouTube and having a lot of conversations with people. And a lot of people might ask about things in terms of marketing, and they might ask a lot of things in terms of A&R and getting things like how do I get this label to look at me? But because of my conversations and keeping posts, like it was like not super quantitative data that was on a list, but just being able to talk and see those conversations, I was like, well, there's this huge need to just understand how to get people's attention in the first place. Gotcha. And how to reach out and build those relationships in the first place, because the meta of what everybody's saying is basically, how do I get relationships? Right? And because if you knew the right person to talk to, if you had a relationship with the person to talk to, you probably wouldn't need all these marketing dollars, or you probably wouldn't need to figure out how to get with this label. You would have a contact that would put you in those positions.
Gotcha.
So that was one of the things that that really inspired that. It's like I saw the need there, and I know about it, especially with dealing with sales and things like that. It's pretty much it's all the same. Understanding how to approach people, understanding that you won't necessarily get in contact with people the first time, every time. You know, like getting creative in how you actually get people's attention at times. And there's so many various ways that was that I saw that as a necessity, especially when. Okay, so the other thing that was a huge inspiration. Actually, I forgot about this part, but it was actually a huge annoyance with people DMing me.
I can see that.
Like, just to be honest, because the way they would DM me, it was like, how do you not know that this is not okay? Just point blank.
Yeah.
The language that they would use, or the way that they would talk about it, like especially once I got more and more DMs, there was times that I would actually try to correct somebody, and I remember somebody getting an attitude, and I was like, "Hey, I'm trying to help you, but whatever." But people might say, "Hey, what's up? I don't know you.
Yeah, you're like,
give me information." Like, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Or they might just come with 5 paragraphs, and like, I'm not going to read all of this.
Yeah.
You know, and it's asking you to do like 3 or 4 different things. Mm-hmm. So there's so many different versions of a DM that doesn't work or is just bad. I definitely saw, especially caring about the audience, I saw that as a big thing as well, because I would talk so heavily about marketing. But it's like, if you can't make these relationships happen yourself, like, because my whole thing for the channel is, and the way I build it is for you to go out and be able to do it yourself, not to need me, and always like, because I can't consult at scale. You know what I mean? I can't work at a lot of projects, but if I give you the right information or way to go about it, it works. So, yeah, that was I kind of suppressed that part of things, but that it was a huge annoyance. It was a huge problem for me at one point with how people were DMing me and what they were, yeah, and the attitudes that they might have if I didn't respond how they thought I should.
Well, it's funny because people, from the outside looking in, no one would ever think of that necessarily, especially if people don't have followings like you do. To a certain extent, though, it goes back to kind of what you said about putting your stuff out there, because that's where you're able to get feedback, and like you almost use, the people that are in the, out there in the internet, use them kind of as feedback. So that was a case then, if I understand correctly, where you had basically seen that, hey, I'm getting all these people asking this question, and then on top of that, it was kind of also solving a problem for you, because then they would know how to reach out, as opposed to just bombarding you. Man, that's awesome. Very cool stuff. So knowing what you know about the industry today, and we'll kind of get through one more question, then I want to give you an opportunity to tell everyone where they can link up with you and stuff. What are the most important skill sets? What are the more valuable skill sets for up and coming artists to learn nowadays?
Outside of the art itself, the biggest.
You can name three if you want.
Yeah. People might not like some of these, but I would say one of the greatest skill sets to have is really just relationship building, and how to make that happen, like the politicking of things. Just if you look up somebody like Chance the Rapper, the independent thing it's cool, but the greatest advantage is knowing how to move, and he understands how to move. His dad helped put Obama in office as a senator, right? His dad's a politician. He helped game him on how do you build these relationships, and there's so much of it that's just simply relationships. Yep. People you can cold call all you want, but you're doing so much more effort if you don't have the relationships and understand how to get in contact with people who will put you in position with things. And these aren't necessarily people who are directly in this role, but just you have enough relationships. You're talking about a cool idea. Somebody else says, "Oh man, I know somebody at that company like Love Renaissance." You mentioned Love Renaissance. They have their new sneaker with Reebok. That was not like hey, we should have a Reebok deal, and let's reach out to Reebok, and then they do a deal with them. Mm-hmm. I understand enough about some of the relationships they have in their circle and how things have snowballed to know that it was more of a situation of what I always promote, right? Make friends before you need them, right? If you need money or you need this deal and now you're trying to reach out to these people, it's going to be hard to make things happen. But if you are in circles and you build relationships with people, and then one day you have a cool idea or you might need them, then bam, that access is already granted. It's a lot easier to make it happen. Yep. But a lot of problems, some people you might never even need them or whatever their skill set does. But it might be cool if you can connect them with other people, right? It's not about using, because that's another thing. I'm big on not just using people for the sake of using them, or pretending to be friends and all that stuff. So that's one thing. But that is almost, I would almost say the hugest thing, if I could think of one thing, just relationships. Because there's a lot of people who wouldn't have, who might not be justified to be in the positions they are if you look from the outside or be objective, mm-hmm. but they have certain relationships in play. Sure. The next thing is understanding how to communicate your brand, what that looks like. So that is just, once you're sure on what that looks like, who you want to be and represent, it's really just the consistency. I can't really say it more than that. A brand isn't built overnight. A brand is your reputation. It's built over time. Right. So just understanding how to build the brand, and that comes from consistency. I would almost just call it from a skill set standpoint, perseverance. Sounds a little like fluffy, but anybody who's actually acted out the whole consistent persistence thing on a real like non-lazy doing it just to go through the motion scale, they've seen the exponential results that eventually come from it. It just is what it is. It's like the game breaker. And the last thing, if I had to choose a skill, let me see, networking. I would say, which is kind of similar to relationship building, because we all know all this marketing stuff is a thing that needs to be done and cool thing, but like the ability to build and work within a team. So a meta of that would just be like self-awareness. So you have to be able to understand what your shortcomings are, what you don't want to do, and how to get people that complement that to, to come around you and actually work with you. So that would be the last thing I would say. That self-awareness thing is huge. It's huge.
I love that, man. I think that, finding a way to figure out I spoke to one of our other speakers, Shane Stott. He is a serial entrepreneur. He's just like crazy businessman, but he specializes in like crowdfunding and Kickstarters. And talking to him, it's like he said one good way is to find out what people want that are on your team outside of what you guys are doing, and then see how you can help them achieve that. Because I think that's a struggle, is everyone's wanting to tie people, get their entities tied down so that they're all on the same page. But a lot of the time, especially as creative people, we're like short-sighted and we're just thinking about, what's immediately in front of us and what our goals are. And so I think it all just kind of speaks to what you've been saying, about adding value and, learning how to find a benefit in the relationship for other people. I love what you said about before you need it. You know what I mean? Because I think people wait till the need's there, and then it's like that desperation of, hey, I got this thing, can you help me? Versus, hey, how can I help you? And then down the road, it seems like it's a little bit more natural, is what I'm gathering from what you're saying, though. So
yeah, that's huge, and I'm glad you repeated that point of whatever. I think you said Shane Scott's name, as far as finding everybody's other needs, because most artists, you guys are going to need that. When you don't have money. If you don't have money to offer people, like, you have to figure out other ways to add value. Whether they want to be a manager or something like that, a huge manager, that might be cool, right? They're attached to you in that way, but there might be other things that you have to figure out to provide value if you aren't a standpoint where you can just pay them to keep on payroll. That's a dream position, right? When you are at a point where now I could just pay people and hire them as an employee, and their life or their job is to just do what needs to be done, but most people aren't at that point yet. So definitely take note of that one as well.
Love that, man. Dude, you've added so much value to the summit. The last thing is, I know everybody's going to want to go to your YouTube, Brandman Sean. Is that the way that you want everyone to come connect with you and kind of link up that way, or is there other things you have going on you want them to check out? I know a lot of people are going to be heading over, so.
Yeah. BrandmanSean.com works. Brandman, SEAN.com. If you type that in, like the website, or you just type it into YouTube, I'll pop up everywhere. SEO is on point, so I'm good with that. You'll be directed to wherever your interests relate to over time. That works for me.
Cool, man. So everyone go check out BrandmanSean.com or just type them into Google. Man, thank you so much, and please let me know if there's anything I can do to help you, okay?
Sure, man.
All right, bro. Have a good day. Thanks again.